She's not rejecting you, she just doesn't feel the spark. And the more you chase, the faster that spark dies. That's the brutal reality most men face. You meet a woman, you feel excited, you see potential. But while you're leaning in, she's leaning out. Her messages get slower, her tone gets colder, and before long, you're stuck wondering what went wrong. You replay every conversation, every move, thinking maybe if you'd said the right thing, she'd be interested. But the truth is simpler. She never felt desire because you gave her nothing to desire. Here's the thing, women don't want the man who explains himself. They don't want the man who's always available. They want the man who makes them wonder. The man who creates space, who lives with purpose, who carries himself with a quiet confidence that forces her to lean in. That's what pulls her interest, even when she thought she had none. And this is where Stoicism changes the game. Instead of reacting to her silence, you master your own. Instead of chasing her attention, you make your attention rare. Instead of trying to win her over, you let her feel the weight of your presence by not giving it away. In this video, I'll break down exactly how to flip the dynamic and make her want you even when she swore she didn't. Let's get into it. Number 1. Stop chasing. Start attracting. Most men think the way to win a woman's interest is to try harder. If she doesn't respond, they text more. If she seems distant, they buy gifts, offer compliments, or bend over backwards just to keep her attention. But here's the harsh truth, chasing kills attraction. Every time you push harder, you show her she's the prize and you're the pursuer. And that imbalance destroys desire. Let me give you an example. David, 56, from Colorado, started seeing Rachel, 51, after meeting through a hiking club. At first, she seemed curious. They had coffee, exchanged numbers, and went out twice. But soon, Rachel became distant. She took longer to reply and always seemed busy. David panicked. He thought if he just put in more effort, she would come around. So he sent flowers, wrote long messages, even rearranged his schedule to fit hers. The result? Rachel lost even more interest. Why? Because instead of letting her invest in him, David was chasing her, and that imbalance made him look less attractive. Attraction doesn't grow from being chased. It grows when you create space for her curiosity to breathe. Women don't want a man who is always available. They want a man who makes them feel like they need to earn his attention. That's why the shift is simple. Stop chasing, start attracting. What does attracting look like? It's not about games. It's about living in a way that shows you have purpose beyond her. When you're grounded, focused on your own life, and not desperate for validation, she senses it. And that quiet strength makes her lean in. Think about it. When you chase, you flood the market with your attention. And just like anything in oversupply, it loses value. But when you pull back, when you let your attention become scarce, suddenly it feels more valuable. She begins to wonder, why isn't he chasing me like other men? What's different about him? That curiosity is the seed of attraction. The Stoics taught this centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Chasing is weakness because it gives her power over your emotions. Attraction is strength because it shows you're in control of yourself. David eventually learned this lesson. After burning himself out trying to win Rachel, he stopped. He focused on his fitness, his career, and his friendships. And without chasing, Rachel noticed the shift. She started reaching out again, curious about why he wasn't putting her at the center anymore. David didn't have to beg for her attention. His stillness attracted it. So here's the takeaway. The man who chases becomes predictable, but the man who attracts becomes magnetic. When you stop trying to prove your worth, you force her to recognize it. If you've ever stopped chasing and felt your power return, write it in the comments. I attract, not chase. And here's the key. When you learn to attract instead of chase, you'll see women respond in ways you never expected. And once you master this mindset, You'll start noticing a new kind of respect, a new kind of curiosity, and a new kind of desire directed your way. And that's only the beginning of where this can take you. Number 2. Silence speaks louder than words. When a woman starts pulling away, most men think their best weapon is words. They explain themselves, they try to prove their feelings, they write long texts hoping she'll finally understand. But here's the reality: words rarely change her mind. In fact, the more you explain, the less she feels, because attraction isn't built through convincing. It's built through presence, discipline, and mystery. Silence, on the other hand, has power words will never match. When you choose silence, you send a message far stronger than any paragraph, that you're not dependent on her reaction. You're not desperate to fill the gap. You're not going to beg for attention. That stillness unsettles her, because most men can't do it. Think about the psychology behind this. If she ignores your text and you reply with more words, she learns she can control you. But if she ignores you and you stay calm, no reaction, no chasing you, flip the power dynamic. She's left wondering what's going on in your head. And curiosity, more than anything you could say, is what draws her back in. The Stoics understood this centuries ago. Epictetus said, "Keep silence for the most part, and speak only when you must." In relationships, this principle is gold. When you resist the urge to explain, you protect your frame. You let your silence speak for you, showing strength that words could never capture. Silence isn't about ignoring her out of spite. It's about demonstrating discipline. Most men panic when faced with a gap in attention. They rush to fill it. But the man who embraces silence shows that he's different. He's not playing the same predictable game. He's operating from strength, not fear. And here's the paradox. Silence often creates more impact than speech. When you stop explaining, she starts imagining. When you stop chasing, she starts noticing. When you stop filling every gap with reassurance, she begins to feel the absence of your presence. And that feeling is far more powerful than anything you could type into a phone. Let's be clear, silence doesn't guarantee she'll come back. What it guarantees is that you'll keep your dignity, you'll protect your energy, you'll avoid the trap of lowering your value with desperate words. And if she does come back, it's because she felt the strength of your stillness, not because you convinced her with explanations. That's why silence speaks louder than words. Words can be ignored, twisted, or dismissed. Silence cannot. Silence forces her to confront your absence. Silence makes her question her own position. Silence reminds her that your attention isn't free, that it has weight, and she must earn it. If you've ever chosen silence over chasing and felt the power shift, write it in the comments. I choose silence. And here's what you'll notice. Once you embrace this truth, suddenly, you stop fearing her silence. You start using it. You recognize that what you don't say is just as important, if not more, than what you do. And that understanding opens the door to a completely different level of control, one that most men never even realize they have. Number 3, don't be too available. Here's a truth that stings. When you're always available, you stop being attractive. Most men confuse availability with care. They think, if I'm always there when she calls, if I answer immediately, if I clear my schedule for her, she'll see I'm serious. But that's not how attraction works. What it really shows her is that your time isn't valuable, and if your time isn't valuable, neither are you. Let's put this into perspective. Mark, 52, from Florida, started dating Jessica, 49, after meeting at a community art event. At first, Jessica liked his energy. He seemed confident and fun. But within weeks, Mark made himself too available. Every time she suggested a plan, he dropped everything. When she texted, he replied instantly, even late at night. He cancelled his golf games with friends and rearranged his work schedule just to be around her. At first, Jessica appreciated the attention, but quickly, the spark faded. Why? because Mark stopped being a man with his own life and became a man orbiting hers. And the moment she realized she didn't need to work for his attention, her attraction collapsed. This is the psychology most men miss. Humans value what's scarce. We don't crave what we can get at any moment. We crave what feels limited. That's why availability works against you. By being constantly present, you remove all the mystery, all the tension, all the sense of effort she needs to put in. And when she doesn't have to invest, she doesn't value what's in front of her. Now, this doesn't mean you should play games or ignore her deliberately. It means you should live a life that's full enough that you can't always drop everything at her request. A man with purpose, with passions, with commitments, naturally creates scarcity. And that scarcity builds respect. When she sees that you're not always free, she interprets that as value. She thinks, "This man has a life. I want to be part of it." The Stoics captured this mindset perfectly. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." If you waste your time by giving it away too easily, you show you don't respect it. And if you don't respect your own time, why should she? Look back at Mark. When he finally realized what was happening, he made a change. Instead of being instantly available, he started keeping his commitments with friends and focusing on his projects. He didn't answer every text right away. He didn't rearrange his week just to accommodate Jessica. And what happened? Jessica's interest grew again. She started leaning in, trying to earn his time, because suddenly his time had value. Here's the bottom line. Attraction fades when you're too available, but it grows when she feels she has to earn your attention. You don't need to make her chase endlessly, but you do need to show that your world doesn't revolve around her. That balance is what keeps her intrigued. If you've ever pulled back from being too available and noticed her interest rise, write it in the comments. I value my time. And here's why this shift matters. Once you stop being always available, you start seeing women treat you differently. They respect your time, they invest more, and they realize you're not just another man waiting around. You're a man living with purpose. And that difference makes you unforgettable. Number 4. Mystery always fuels desire. One of the biggest mistakes men make in dating is thinking that total honesty too early creates attraction. They believe if they reveal everything about themselves right away, she'll feel secure and interested. But that's not how desire works. Desire thrives on curiosity. It thrives on the unknown. And mystery, when used with balance, is one of the most powerful forces you can create. When you reveal everything too soon, you rob her of the thrill of discovery. You leave nothing for her to wonder about, nothing for her to imagine. And when there's no imagination, there's no tension. Without tension, attraction fades. Think of it like watching a movie. If someone tells you the ending in the first 5 minutes, the excitement is gone. The same principle applies in relationships. Mystery doesn't mean lying or hiding your true self. It means revealing layers gradually, letting her earn access to deeper parts of you. When she feels there's more to uncover, she invests. She leans in, she pays attention, because mystery creates a gap, and the human mind is wired to want to fill gaps. This is why silence, restraint, and unpredictability are so effective. They keep her guessing. They force her to ask questions. What's he thinking? Why didn't he text right away? What's he doing when he's not with me? And those questions spark emotions stronger than any direct answer could. The Stoics understood the value of withholding. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The more we value things outside our control, the less control we have." When you overshare, when you put everything on the table, you're giving her control over your inner world. But when you keep a part of yourself private, not secret, but reserved, you maintain control. That control projects strength, and strength is attractive. Here's the paradox most men miss. Mystery doesn't push her away, it pulls her in. When she doesn't know everything, she imagines. And imagination often creates more desire than reality ever could. She starts filling in the blanks with her own thoughts, her own emotions, her own fantasies. And the version she builds in her head is often more powerful than the version you could ever explain. This doesn't mean playing games or being intentionally vague to confuse her. It means showing confidence in not needing to explain everything. It means letting silence do some of the work. It means knowing that sometimes the most powerful answer is none at all. Think about it. The man who tells her his every move, every thought, every feeling becomes predictable. But the man who reveals just enough to spark curiosity stays intriguing, and intrigue is the fuel of desire. So here's the lesson. If you want to keep attraction alive, stop rushing to reveal everything. Let her earn it. Let her wonder. Let her lean in to find out more. Because mystery isn't deception, it's discipline. And discipline always wins. If you've ever noticed that holding back created more interest than oversharing, write it in the comments. I live in mystery. And here's the beauty of this truth. Once you understand the power of mystery, you stop fearing her silence. You stop worrying about filling every gap. Instead, you recognize that the unknown is your ally. And when you master that, you'll never feel the need to explain yourself to earn desire again. Number 5. Never compete for her attention. One of the worst positions a man can put himself in is acting like he's competing for a woman's attention. The moment you see yourself as one of many, you've already lost. Because competition communicates something very clear. You don't see yourself as the prize, and if you don't, she won't either. Let's take a real-life scenario. John, 55, from Arizona, started dating Emily, 50, after they met through mutual friends. Things were going well at first, but then Emily began pulling back. She posted pictures with other men from her office. She mentioned how popular she was, and she subtly hinted that she had options. Instead of staying calm, John panicked. He started texting more, asking who she was with, trying to prove he was better than the competition. But in doing so, John made the critical mistake. He confirmed her belief that he wasn't confident enough to stand on his own. By competing, he showed weakness, and Emily lost interest fast. This is the trap many men fall into. They think if they prove they're the best option, she'll choose them. But women aren't attracted to men who beg for first place. They're drawn to men who act like there is no competition at all. The man who carries himself as if he is the standard, not the contestant, instantly shifts the dynamic. When you compete for her attention, you give her the power. You make her the judge, the one who decides who wins. But when you refuse to compete, when you live like your value is non-negotiable, you take the power back. She has to rise to your level, not the other way around. The Stoics spoke about this mindset. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know anything about the subject." Applied here, it doesn't matter how many men chase her. It doesn't change your worth. Your value isn't measured against them. It stands on its own. Look at John again. After realizing his mistake, he pulled back. Instead of fighting for Emily's attention, he stopped giving it away so easily. He focused on his fitness, on spending time with his kids, and on building his business. And what happened? Emily started noticing the shift. Suddenly, he wasn't competing anymore, he was living. That change forced her to reevaluate what she had taken for granted. The truth is simple. The man who competes looks needy. The man who refuses to compete looks powerful. Women don't want the man fighting for a spot in their lives. They want the man whose presence is so strong that they fight for a spot in his. So here's the lesson. Stop looking at her attention as something you have to win. Stop worrying about other men. Stop trying to prove yourself. You don't compete for value, you embody it. And when you do, she'll feel it without you saying a word. If you've ever chosen not to compete and felt your power grow, write it in the comments. I don't compete. And once you understand this principle, you'll notice something powerful. You'll stop reacting to every distraction she throws your way. You'll stop chasing her attention like a prize. Instead, you'll start moving with the kind of confidence that makes her chase you. And that shift is what separates the men who struggle from the men who lead. Number 6. Confidence outweighs love. Most men think love is enough. They believe that if they just show how much they care, if they prove their loyalty, if they pour everything into a woman, she'll finally choose them. But here's the hard truth. Love without confidence isn't love at all. It's neediness. And nothing kills attraction faster than neediness. Think about it. A man can shower a woman with affection, gifts, and attention. He can tell her he loves her every day. But if he's insecure, if he doubts himself, if he seeks constant reassurance, none of that love matters. She won't feel safe with him. She won't admire him. She won't desire him. Because deep down, women aren't drawn to love alone, they're drawn to strength. And confidence is the root of that strength. Confidence communicates something love never can, that you're whole on your own, that you don't need her validation to feel worthy, that you choose her because you want to, not because you have to. And that difference changes everything. The Stoics knew this truth. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Love without confidence enslaves you. It makes you a prisoner of her moods, her attention, her approval. But confidence liberates you. It allows you to love fully without fear of loss, because you know your worth doesn't depend on her reaction. Here's the paradox. When you stop making love your entire strategy, when you lead with confidence instead, your love becomes more powerful. Why? Because it's no longer coming from weakness. It's not a plea for validation. It's an offering from strength. And women feel that difference immediately. Picture this. One man tells her, "I love you, please don't leave me." Another man tells her nothing, but shows through his presence that he's grounded, steady, unshaken. Which one will she desire more? It's always the second, because confidence creates security. Security creates trust, and trust opens the door to attraction. This doesn't mean you withhold love. It means you prioritize confidence first, because without it, your love becomes a burden. With it, your love becomes a gift. Ask yourself this: if she pulled away tomorrow, would you collapse? Would you beg, chase, and lose yourself? Or would you remain calm, still grounded in who you are? The man who chooses the second path is the one she remembers. So the real lesson here is simple. Stop thinking love is enough. Build confidence first. Love from a place of strength, not weakness. Because when you do, your presence becomes magnetic. She doesn't just see your affection, she feels your power. If you've ever realized confidence changed the way she looked at you, write it in the comments. I lead with confidence. And here's why this principle is so important. Once you understand that confidence outweighs love, you'll never again fall into the trap of over-giving, over-explaining, or over-chasing. You'll recognize that true desire comes not from how much you love her, but from how deeply you respect yourself. And that shift sets the stage for everything else that's coming. Number 7. Make her feel she could lose you. Attraction is built on value, and nothing reminds someone of value more than the possibility of losing it. Most men get this wrong. They think if they just keep giving, keep proving, keep showing up no matter what, she'll eventually see how loyal they are. But that kind of blind loyalty often backfires. Instead of respecting it, she takes it for granted. She stops seeing you as rare. She starts assuming you'll always be there, no matter how she treats you. And once that happens, desire fades. Let's look at a real scenario. Robert, 57, from Ohio, had been dating Linda, 53, for almost a year. Robert was a generous man, always picking her up, paying for dinners, rearranging his schedule to be available. At first, Linda enjoyed the attention, but over time, she grew distant. Robert didn't understand. He thought the solution was to give more, but the more he gave, the less she appreciated it. It wasn't until Robert decided to focus on himself, spending more time at the gym, traveling for work, and reconnecting with friends that things shifted. For the first time, Linda felt his absence. She realized Robert wasn't guaranteed, and suddenly her interest reignited. That's the psychology at play. Humans don't value what feels permanent. We value what we know we could lose. It's why scarcity drives demand in every area of life, relationships included. This doesn't mean you threaten her, play games, or pull away just to manipulate. It means you live in a way that naturally reminds her you're not an option to be taken lightly. You're a man with standards, a man with purpose, a man who won't stick around if he isn't respected. That energy makes her invest. It makes her work to keep your attention. The Stoics lived by this mindset. Seneca said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." When you waste your energy chasing or overgiving, you lose your value in her eyes. But when you guard your time and your attention, she realizes it's something precious, something she doesn't want to lose. Here's the paradox. When you stop making yourself endlessly available, she doesn't feel neglected, she feels intrigued. She feels the weight of your presence when it's no longer guaranteed. She feels the fear, even if unspoken, that you could slip away. And that fear is what reignites respect and attraction. Look back at Robert. The moment he stopped being predictable, the dynamic changed. Linda started reaching out more, making plans, showing effort. Not because he demanded it, but because she suddenly felt she might lose what she once assumed was permanent. That's the lesson. Never let her feel like your presence is automatic. Let her feel, in subtle ways, that you choose to be there, and that choice can change. That's what keeps her invested. If you've ever pulled back and saw her suddenly realize your value, write it in the comments. I am not guaranteed. And here's the key: when you understand this principle, you'll stop fearing distance. You'll stop worrying about losing her. Instead, you'll start realizing that sometimes the possibility of loss is exactly what keeps attraction alive. And once you embrace that, you'll never look at relationships the same way again. Number 8. Attention is your currency. Spend it wisely. Here's the reality most men don't want to face. Your attention is the most valuable thing you own. More valuable than your money, more valuable than gifts, more valuable than sweet words. Because attention communicates what you value. And the way you give it or waste it decides whether she respects you or takes you for granted. Think about it. When a man floods a woman with endless texts, likes every post, calls constantly, and rearranges his day just to be around, what does that communicate? It tells her his attention is cheap, it's always available. She doesn't need to earn it. She doesn't need to invest in it, because he gives it away without thought. And just like money, when something is printed in unlimited supply, it loses its value. But when you treat your attention like currency, everything changes. You spend it with intention. You don't give it to everyone, and you don't give it without reason. You direct it toward the people, the situations, and the relationships that truly matter. And when you do, women sense the difference. Suddenly, your attention feels scarce. Scarcity creates value, and value creates desire. The Stoics taught this principle long before modern psychology confirmed it. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Where you focus, what you attend to, shapes your reality. If your thoughts and attention are consumed by her every move, you lose yourself. But if your attention is guided by discipline directed toward growth, purpose, and strength, you become magnetic without saying a word. Here's the paradox. When you stop giving your attention away freely, women lean in harder. They notice when you do give it because it feels earned. A short text from you carries more weight than 10 from another man. A compliment from you feels more meaningful because you don't hand them out to everyone. By treating your attention as currency, you elevate its impact. This isn't about playing games or withholding affection. It's about self-respect. Just like you wouldn't give away all your money to someone who doesn't value it, you shouldn't give away your attention to someone who hasn't earned it. When you spend it wisely, you protect your frame, you protect your energy, and that's what makes you stand out. Think about men who do the opposite. They chase, they explain, they pour attention into someone who barely gives them the time of day. Not only does this lower their value, it drains them. They end up broke, not financially, but emotionally. And once a man empties himself, he has nothing left to attract with. So here's the shift. Start seeing your attention as limited. Choose carefully where you invest it. Don't overspend it on someone who doesn't reciprocate. And when you do give it, let it be from a place of strength, not desperation. If you've ever noticed how pulling back your attention made her notice you more, write it in the comments. I spend it wisely. And here's the key. Once you learn to treat attention like currency, you stop wasting it. You stop being reckless with it. You start using it in a way that builds value instead of destroying it. And that mindset is what separates men who get overlooked from men who are remembered. Number 9. Presence without pressure draws her in. There's a big difference between being present and being pushy. Most men blur the line. They think that if they just stay close enough, text enough, or show up enough, a woman will eventually cave in and feel attracted. But pressure never creates attraction, it suffocates it. What draws a woman in is presence without pressure. It's when you're there, but you're not forcing. When you're consistent, but you're not overbearing. When you're steady, but you're not desperate. Let's take a real-life example. Daniel, 54, from Texas, met Caroline, 50, at a local networking event. He felt a spark and decided to pursue her. At first, things went fine. They exchanged numbers, had a few conversations, even went on one casual lunch date. But then Daniel made a mistake that most men make. He started over-investing. Constant texts, asking for plans, trying to fill every gap with attention. Caroline, who at first was open, began to pull away. Daniel couldn't understand why. He thought showing consistent interest was the right thing. But the truth was, his presence was laced with pressure, and that killed the attraction. Now, contrast that with how things shifted when Daniel pulled back. Instead of pressing for answers or filling silence with chatter, he started living his own life. He focused on his weekend fishing trips, his gym routine, and his business goals. He was still polite and present when Caroline reached out, but he no longer pressured her for more. And what happened? Caroline began to lean in again. She noticed the difference between a man who needed her attention and a man who simply enjoyed her company without demand. That shift is what pulled her back in. Presence without pressure communicates something powerful. You're not needy, you're not desperate, you're grounded. You enjoy being around her, but you don't depend on her response to feel complete. That kind of presence creates safety. It tells her, I'm here, but I don't need to control you. And women feel safe leaning toward men who don't smother them. The Stoics captured this perfectly. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." Presence without pressure is exactly that. You're strict with yourself, you hold back from over-pursuing, over-texting, over-proving. And you're tolerant with her, you allow her space to respond in her own time. This combination is rare, and that rarity makes you stand out. Psychologically, here's why it works. Pressure creates resistance. The more you push, the more she pulls back. But presence, calm, grounded presence creates curiosity. She wonders why you're not chasing like every other man. She wonders why you seem content whether she engages or not. And that curiosity draws her in without you saying a word. This doesn't mean being cold or distant. It means offering your presence as an invitation, not a demand. When she texts, respond without rushing. When she makes plans, join without rearranging your entire life. When she's silent, stay calm without filling the gap with desperate messages. This is how you show you're steady without being suffocating. And the irony, that balance makes your presence more attractive. She starts to associate you with calmness, with steadiness, with strength. And those qualities stick in her mind long after the conversation ends. So here's the lesson. Don't confuse effort with pressure. Presence is enough. Let her feel your energy without pushing her into a corner. Because when you do, you become the rare man she wants to lean toward, not the predictable one she runs away from. If you've ever pulled back the pressure and felt her respond differently, write it in the comments. I stay steady. And here's the key: once you understand how to balance presence with freedom, you'll stop fearing her silence. You'll stop thinking you need to force attraction. You'll realize that the most powerful move you can make is to simply stand firm, calm, and unshaken. And that mindset prepares you for what's coming next. Number 10. The man who can walk away always wins. There's one truth that separates men who constantly struggle in relationships from men who seem to hold all the power. The man who can walk away is always the man who wins. Why? Because walking away isn't just about leaving her behind. It's about proving to yourself and to her that your self-respect outweighs your need for approval. When you stay in situations where you're undervalued, when you tolerate disrespect, or when you keep chasing someone who shows no genuine interest, you teach her that your boundaries don't exist. And without boundaries, there can be no respect. Women don't admire men who beg for scraps. They admire men who demand, by their actions, to be treated as equals or not at all. Walking away doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care more about your dignity than about forcing a connection. It shows you're strong enough to let go of what doesn't serve you. And that quiet strength leaves an impact far deeper than any desperate attempt to stay. Think about it. A man who refuses to walk away when necessary becomes predictable. He'll tolerate cold replies, broken promises, last-minute cancellations, all because he's afraid of losing her. But every time he accepts less, she gives less, until one day there's nothing left at all. On the other hand, the man who shows he can walk away at any moment communicates something magnetic. I don't need you to define me. I choose you because I want to, not because I have to. That difference shifts everything. This principle isn't just about romance, it's about life. The Stoics built their entire philosophy on the idea of control. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." When you cling to a woman who isn't choosing you, you give up your freedom. You make her approval, something you can't live without. But when you're willing to walk away, you take that freedom back. Suddenly, your power is no longer in her hands. It's in yours. Let's break this down into psychology. Humans are wired to value what they can't fully control. When she knows you're willing to walk away, she feels that uncertainty. She realizes she can't manipulate you with silence, with mixed signals, or with other distractions. And that realization sparks respect. She may test your limits, but when you show you have limits, you instantly rise above the crowd of men who don't. Walking away isn't always about getting her back. Sometimes it means closing the door permanently, and that's okay, because the real win isn't whether she returns. The real win is that you refuse to betray yourself. You refuse to live beneath your own standards, and that decision protects your value far more than clinging ever could. Here's another layer. Women often admire men more after they walk away, not because of some game, but because distance reveals what presence often hides. When you're gone, she feels the absence. She notices the stability, the calm, the confidence that once seemed normal but now feels rare. And sometimes that's when attraction reignites. Not because you chased, but because you showed you were strong enough to leave. But even if she doesn't return, you've already won. You kept your dignity. You showed yourself that you won't sell your worth for attention. You reinforced the most important truth, that your value isn't negotiable, and that mindset carries into every part of your life, your career, your friendships, your health. Most men live in fear of losing her. The rare man flips that script. He knows that losing her isn't the end. Losing his self-respect is. And once you internalize that truth, you move differently, you speak differently. You carry yourself with the kind of confidence that can't be faked, because deep down, you know you can walk away and still be whole. So remember this: the man who clings loses, the man who begs loses, the man who tolerates disrespect loses, but the man who can walk away, he never loses, because no matter the outcome, he keeps the one thing that matters most, his power, and that's what makes him unforgettable. So here's the truth. Attraction isn't about chasing, begging, or proving yourself. It's about discipline, self-respect, and the ability to hold your frame no matter what. The man who understands scarcity, mystery, and confidence always stands out. And the man who can walk away, he never loses because his power can't be taken from him. If this message hit home, make sure you subscribe. This channel is here to remind you every day how to live with stoic strength, masculine calm, and the kind of confidence that makes women notice. Thank you for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.